years, I used to fly for an international airlines. As you know, employees of any airlines globally enjoy fabulous travel perks. Today I want to share with you ZED fares as opposed to ID fares. What is the difference?
Number one, I'm going to talk about the difference between ID travel and ZED travel. ID travels are those traveling privileges given by that particular airlines that you work for its employees to travel within its own carrier. Where it could be ID 90, IDs 85, 80, 75, 70, so on and so forth. And it's normally cheaper, a lot cheaper than ZED travel. ZED travel is the Zonal employee discounts travel agreement, inter-airlines agreement from one carrier, one airline with many other airlines, where they have agreed that when the employees of that particular airline buy ZED travel from one destination to another destination, that is a agreed fare. This is the privilege accorded to all airlines employees so that they can enjoy concessional travel with other airlines. The fares are still cheap, but it's slightly more than ID travel. You're probably going to ask me, so what's the difference between ID travel and ZED fare? Let me give you a very simple example to illustrate this point. For instance, if you're flying from Kuala Lumpur to Bangkok, if you are flying with the airlines that you work for, you can choose to pay ID fare, which is normally cheaper than ZED fare because ID fare depends on your seniority. It could be ID 90 or ID 65, whereas ZED fare is a standard fare, Zonal employee discounted fares, which is standard fare for you to fly other than the airlines that you work for. You could be flying Thai Airways, Malaysia Airlines, Royal Jordanian Airlines, Lufthansa from Kuala Lumpur to Bangkok, or any other airlines. I'm not sure who else is flying that routes because after MCO things could have changed, so you need to check that out and choose accordingly. How to book your ID fares or ZED fare travels. As an airline employee, I'm sure you are given access to a travel portal. Like in my case, I use the airline that I work for, use my ID travel, which I believe most of the airlines employees are using that portal to book their staff travel frequently. In case you're wondering how cheap it is for staff travel compared to commercial rate, I'm going to give you an example which is memorable to me. This happened 10 years ago, but as a reference for you to see, that was 10 years ago from Miami to London Heathrow. I paid Ringgit Malaysia 267 inclusive of all taxes. Fare tickets has a validity of normally 3 months. If you don't fly with these 3 months, you can renew or you can ask for a refund. Everything can be done through that portal. And you have to do meal listing on certain airlines, for instance Qatar Airways and British Airways. After you have bought their tickets, you can see from the ticket they will ask you to go to a designated website to do meal listing. I think it happened to me as well. Anna Airways as well, I had to do meal listing. Any other airlines, I have never encountered such. I must tell you, I really enjoy using ZED fare to experience flying with many different airlines. I probably have flown with, maybe 50, I'm not sure, airlines. And every time, whenever there are more than one airline flying a certain road, I make sure I didn't fly the same airlines on my return trip. I just wanted to experience yet another in-flight service by other airlines. And I was always very observant. So I think it's pretty fun. Whenever I went on board, I would observe and see so much have been said about this and that airlines, right? So I got to be there. That travel was a little bit complicated in those days. Remember those rectangular paper tickets with carbon copies? Yeah, in those days you had to call the airlines that you wanted to fly with for meal listing, because whenever you bought those tickets, the rectangular paper ticket carbon copy you bought those tickets from your own airlines that you work for, they issue those ZED, and the computation could be so complicated. It happened to me a few times where I spent the whole day in the airline's office just to sort out my ZED travel. Not always, but quite often, I noticed in those days many of the airline check-in staff were not sure about the procedures for admitting ZED travel staff from other airlines, because those days whenever I had those rectangular paper ticket, it only specified the routes. For instance, Los Angeles to Taipei, it only specified the destination point A to point B, and then it would say valid on all ZED carriers. So that means I could fly on whichever airlines that had ZED agreement with the airlines that I work for. Using the same tickets, I could be going for standby on American Airlines or United Airlines or China Airlines or EVA, any airline using the same tickets. Some of the that's where I had a little bit of difficulties every time whenever I use my ZED tickets. I went to the check-in counter, and the check-in counter staff would tell me, oh, you can't use this, it doesn't specify our airlines here. I thought, yes, I could, because it says ZED travelers. So they said, let me check with my supervisor, and they went there and checked, and after 10 minutes they came back, okay, and then done. So I had to explain to them very often. Probably are going to ask me, is it that easy to get a seat traveling on ZED fare? Generally, yes. It's not that difficult when you fly overseas, but very difficult whenever I use ZED fare on domestic in USA. Very, very difficult. How difficult? Let me tell you. It happened to me a few times from Atlanta on standby to Fort Myers. I waited from first flight until the last flight the whole day, and I still couldn't get a seat. So I had to put up a night at the airport hotel, and I came back the next morning on standby again, and I got it. And it also happened to me in Managua in Nicaragua. I waited only one flight a day, and I didn't get it. The next day I came. Luckily I got it. Last night I always had a very pleasant flight traveling on ZED fare with foreign airlines. They were very kind to me. I enjoyed all my ZED travels. You know, I've heard so much about this and that airline, some bad reviews, whatnot, but I had good experience with all the airlines. And I had a few times been upgraded, given the business class ticket, not unofficially, it was sort of officially, you know. They straight away issued me a business class boarding pass to experience their business class service. Why not? That was such a wonderful and gracious gesture of them extending their hospitality to me. So I remember flying from Paris to Saint Martin, 9 hours. I got business class. It was empty. Business class was empty. And also once from Los Angeles to Guatemala City, I was issued a business class ticket. 5-hour flight, 4 to 5 hours flight. And a few other times. And I remember once from Amsterdam to Atlanta. Well, It was quite a full flight, and I was so happy that I got a seat. At check-in, that check-in staff was being so gracious. She said, "Oh, I'm so sorry I couldn't put you in business class." I didn't even expect that. I told her, "I'm so thankful that I got a seat. Even if you would have put me in cargo, I would have been very appreciative as well." I just wanted to be on this flight. Only once a day that flights from, no, it wasn't Atlanta, from Amsterdam to Curaçao. Lucky that flying ZED fast nowadays is much simpler. You don't have to do this meal listing. This meal listing can be very complicated in those days, especially when you're trying to fly an airlines that didn't have an office in your country. Quite a hassle. So people, if you have any questions regarding airlines, cabin crew, ZED travels, please comment below this YouTube video, and I will certainly pick up your questions and answer, or I might just make another new video to answer you. I enjoy making video, and I hope if you find my video informative, can I get you to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell for me, please? Would you? Thank you. Ciao.